We call your attention to this small table, which occupies a place of dignity and honor. It is set for one, symbolizing the fact that the members of our armed forces are missing from our ranks. They are referred to as POW-MIAs. We call them comrades. They are unable to be with their loved ones and families. So we join together to pay humble tribute to them and bear witness to their continued absence. The table is small, symbolizing the frailty of one prisoner, alone against his or her suppressors. The tablecloth is white, symbolic of the purity of their intentions to respond to their country's call of arms. The single rose, end of Oz, signifies the blood that they have shed in sacrifice to ensure the freedom of our beloved United States of America. This rose also reminds us of the family and friends of our missing comrades who keep the faith while waiting their return. The red ribbon on the off represents the red ribbons worn on the lapels of thousands who demand, with unyielding determination, a proper account of our comrades who are not among us. A slice of lemon on a plate reminds us of their bitter fate. The salt sprinkled on the plate reminds us of the countless fallen tears of families as they wait. The glass is inverted. They cannot toast with us at this time. The chair is empty. They are not here. The candle is reminiscent of the light of hope, which lives in the hearts to illuminate their way home, away from their captors, to open arms of a grateful nation.
A Warrior's Farewell by Robert E. Joseph. I've heard the crack of rifles, I've heard the bugles cry, I've seen the tears flow down the cheeks of those who say goodbye to their fallen warrior. The honor guard, my place to be, to comfort those who mourn. But still the sadness fills my heart each time I hear that horn for a fallen warrior. They fought the wars that set me free, and now I will repay to them the honor they deserve, for taps will end today of a fallen warrior. Honor, respect, and dignity, they've earned this much and more. A last salute we give to them, to those who go before our fallen warriors. My duty's done, my heart feels glad that I feel the need somewhere a family will recall, a guardsman carrying deed to their fallen warrior. Tomorrow, though, it's time again to hear that bugles cry and hear the guns and see the tears as our nation says goodbye to them, our fallen warriors.
George L. Fox was born March 15, 1900 in Lewiston, Pennsylvania. In addition to George, he had a sister Gertrude and brothers Bert, Leo, and John. When George was just 17, he left school and with strong determination convinced the military authorities that he was 18 and joined the ambulance corps in 1917, shortly after the United States had entered World War I. George was placed in the ambulance corps and shipped to Camp Newton Baker in Texas. On December 3, 1917, George embarked from Camp Merritt, New Jersey, and boarded the U.S. Huron en route to France. As a medical corps assistant, he was highly decorated for bravery and was awarded the Silver Star, Purple Heart, and the French Croix de Guerre. Upon his discharge, he returned home to Altoona, completed his last year in high school, and went to work for the Guaranteed Trust Company. In 1923, he entered Moody Institute in Illinois, where he married at Winona Lake, Indiana. After he withdrew from Moody, he became an itinerant preacher in the Methodist faith. A son, Wyatt Ray, was born on November 11, 1924. After several successful years, George held a student pastorate in Downs, Illinois. He entered Illinois Wesleyan University in Bloomington in 1929 and graduated with an AB degree in 1931. Again, as a student pastored in Rye, New Hampshire, he entered the Boston University School of Theology. George was ordained a Methodist minister on June 10, 1934, and graduated with the STB degree, and he was appointed pastor in Waits River, Vermont. Their second child, Mary Elizabeth, was born shortly thereafter. In 1936, he accepted a pastorate in Union Village, Vermont. His next calling was in Gilman, Vermont, where he joined the Walter G. Moore American Legion Post. He was later appointed state chaplain and historian for the Legion. In mid-1942, George decided to join the Army Chaplain Service and was appointed on July 24, 1942. He went on active duty August 8, 1942, the same day his son Wyatt enlisted in the Marine Corps. He was assigned to the chaplain school at Harvard and then reported to the 411th Coast Artillery Battalion at Camp Davis. He was then reunited with Chaplains Goode, Pauling, and Washington at Camp Miles Standish in Taunton, Massachusetts, and their fateful trip on the USAT Dorchester.
Alexander D. Goode. Was born in Brooklyn, New York on May 10, 1911. His father was a rabbi and his mother Fay had two other sons, Joseph and Moses, and a daughter, Agatha. Alex received medals at Eastern High School, Washington, D.C. for tennis, swimming, and track. He led his class in scholarship too. He planned to follow in his father's footsteps and become a rabbi, but that did not keep him from laughing and shouting and hailed with fellow well-met boyhood with all the Protestant and Catholic boys in his neighborhood. He graduated from Eastern in 1929. He entered the University of Cincinnati and graduated in 1934 with an AB degree, and then on to Hebrew Union College with a BH degree in 1937. He later received his PhD from Johns Hopkins University in 1940. Alex married his childhood sweetheart, Teresa Flax, daughter of Nathan and Rose Flax. Teresa was a niece of singer and motion picture star Al Jolson. They were married October 7, 1935. His first assignment as an ordained rabbi was at a synagogue in Marion, Indiana in 1936. On July 16, 1937, he was transferred to the Beth Israel Synagogue in York, Pennsylvania, until mid-1942. Alex and Teresa had a daughter, Rosalie, who was born in 1939. Rabbi Goode applied to become a chaplain with the U.S. Navy in January 1941, but was not accepted at that time. Right after Pearl Harbor, he tried again, this time with the Army, and received an appointment on July 21st, 1942. Chaplain Goode went on active duty August 9, 1942, and he was selected for chaplain school at Harvard. He had courses in math reading, first aid, law, and chemical warfare. Chaplain Goode was then assigned to the 333rd Air Base Squadron in Goldsboro, North Carolina in October 1942. He was transferred to Camp Miles Standish in Taunton, Massachusetts. And Alex was reunited with Chaplains Fox, Pauling, and Washington, who were classmates of his at Harvard. It was January 1943 when he boarded the USAT Dorchester in Boston and embarkation to Greenland. Chaplain Goode was killed in action February 3rd, 1943 in the icy waters of the North Atlantic when the Dorchester was sunk by a German U-boat.
Clark V. Pauling. Clark B. Poling was born August 7, 1910 in Columbus, Ohio. He was the son of Susie Jane Vandersall of East Liberty, Ohio, and Daniel A. Poling of Portland, Oregon. Clark's siblings were Daniel, Mary, and Elizabeth. Clark attended Whitney Public School in Auburndale, Massachusetts, where his teachers remembered his maturity and delicate side of his nature. The Auburndale days ended when his mother died in 1918. She is buried at the Greenlawn Cemetery in Uniontown, Ohio. Clark's father was an evangelical minister, and in 1936 he was rebaptized as a Baptist minister. Reverend Daniel Poling was remarried on August 11, 1919 to Lillian Diebold Hartgartner in Canton, Ohio. Clark attended Oakwood, a Quaker high school in Poughkeepsie, New York, and was a good student and an excellent football halfback. Clark was a council member and president of his student body. In 1929, he enrolled at Hope College in Holland, Michigan, and spent his last 2 years at Rutgers University in New Brunswick, New Jersey, graduating in 1933 with an A.B. degree. Clark entered Yale University's Divinity School in New Haven, Connecticut, and graduated with his Bachelor of Divinity degree in 1936. He was ordained in the Reformed Church in America, and his first assignment was the First Church of Christ, New London, Connecticut. Shortly thereafter, he accepted the assignment of pastor of the First Reformed Church in Schenectady, New York. Clark was married to Betty Young of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and the next year, Clark Jr., or Corky, was born. With our country now at war with Japan, Germany, and Italy, he decided to become a chaplain. Talking with his father, Dr. Daniel A. Poling, who was a chaplain in World War I, he was told that chaplains in that conflict sustained the highest mortality rate of all military personnel. Without hesitation, he was appointed on June 10, 1942, as a chaplain with the 131st Quartermaster Truck Regiment and reported to Camp Shelby, Hattiesburg, Mississippi on June 25, 1942. Later, he attended chaplain school at Harvard with chaplains Fox, Goode, and Washington after his transfer to Camp Miles Standish in Taunton, Massachusetts. Shortly after the USAT Dorchester was sunk on February 3, 1943, his wife Betty gave birth to a daughter, Susan Elizabeth, on April 20th.
Father John P. Washington. John P. Washington was born in Newark, New Jersey on July the 18th, 1808. His parents were Frank and Mary. In addition, they had daughters Mary and Anna, and sons Thomas, Francis, Leo, and Edmund. In 1914, John was enrolled in St. Rose de Lima Catholic Elementary School. In those days, times were tough for a poor immigrant family, but John helped out. He took a newspaper route to help his mother with extra money. John was active in sports, and he also began piano lessons. He loved music and sang in a church choir. When he entered 7th grade, he felt strongly about becoming a priest. During the previous year, he became an altar boy, and his priestly destiny was in process. John entered Seton Hall in South Orange, New Jersey to complete his high school and college courses in preparation for the priesthood. He graduated in 1931 with an A.B. degree. He entered Immaculate Conception Cemetery in Darlington, New Jersey, and received his minor orders on May 26, 1933. John excelled in the seminary and was a subdeacon at all the solemn masses, and later became a deacon on December 25, 1934. John was elected prefect of his class and was ordained a priest on June the 15th, 1935. Father Washington's first parish was at St. Genevieve's in Littleton, New Jersey, and then he served in the Nuthouse for a year. In 1938, he was assigned to St. Stephen's in Arlington, New Jersey. Shortly after the Pearl Harbor attack on December 7, 1941, he received his appointment as a chaplain in the United States Army. Father Washington went on active duty on May the 9th, 1942. He was named Chief of Chaplains Reserve Pool at Fort Benjamin Harrison, Indiana. In June 1942, he was assigned to the 76th Infantry Division at Fort George Meade, Maryland. And in November 1942, he reported to Camp Miles Standish in Taunton, Massachusetts, and met Chaplains Fox, Goode, and Poling at Chaplain School at Harvard. Father Washington boarded the SS Dorchester at the embarkation camp at Boston Harbor in January 1943 en route to Greenland. Chaplain Washington was killed in action on February the 3rd, 1943, when the Dorchester was sunk by a German U-boat.
Well, good evening. Hearing the stories of these four men and looking out and seeing all the men and the women that have served in our military, it is a humbling thing. We see on the bulletins the theme of tonight's event is greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Ask yourself this question, if you will. How far will you go for your friend? And think about these four men and others who have served in our military, especially these five over here that were part of this community. When they took that oath to become members of the United States military, they were taking a vow. And it wasn't just a vow to take care of each other and be okay and have a good time and maybe go out every now and then after we do our time, we'll gather together every so many years and maybe drink a beer and have a toast to some of our other friends that were in combat service with us or that. No, they were dedicating their lives for freedom, for service to others. They were putting others ahead of themselves. They stood up and they said, I will answer the call. Some people have asked me, well, how do you know you were called to the priesthood? Well, I answer very simply. I was called to the priesthood because I didn't want to go. See, when God calls you, you can do one of two things. You can fight or you can accept. These four men answered the call to God. But there was also another call that was given to these men, and it was a call for their country. And they answered that call, not begrudgingly, but gladly, with honor, with dignity. They said, yes, I will serve, and I will serve proudly. But as a chaplaincy in the military, it's a little bit different than maybe frontline combat or some of the other parts of the military that are very important. Each and every part of the military. There is no minor part. They are all major players. But in the chaplaincy, these men have a heart for the souls of mankind. And that is generally our calling, is that we would like to see every soul saved. See none condemned, but all go to the glory of God. These four men took it as their mission that no matter where they were sent to, they were going to serve the men that were put in their charge.
right, this evening we have celebrated the Four Chaplains Memorial Ceremony and service at Sergeant David G. Ledgerwood, American Legion Post 255, Deltona, Florida. We do an annual ceremony to honor these four chaplain who, one, have a love for God and a love for their fellow man. Their love for God bound them together, and their love for their fellow men also bound them together. And they ultimately gave the ultimate sacrifice for our country and for the men that they were serving with. So every year, on or near February the 2nd or 3rd, we try and do this ceremony to honor them. It's important for our youth to hear the story, to understand what goes on and how important it is for us to give of ourselves selflessly in order that all in this country can have justice, freedom, and democracy. So that's what this ceremony this evening is about, is honoring these four chaplain who gave their lives for their country and for their fellow man.